The city as character. Seattle and discrimination in housing. According to the Seattle Times and Como News, Seattle was the fastest growing U.S. city in the year of 2020 at the rate of 2.2%. It was also claimed as the fastest growing city of the past decade. On top of that, Seattle is the third most gentrified city. Now, why is Seattle growing so quickly? It could be all the things we're known for, such as Grey's Anatomy, the Seahawks, the Space Needle, Starbucks, or the grunge music scene. It could also be for the reputation of drawing millennials because of the higher minimum wage, being more green or eco-friendly than other major cities. But I think the biggest cause is the booming tech industry. The two big tech companies that are offering these job opportunities for people to move here are Amazon and Microsoft. There's also an expansion of Silicon Valley engineering outposts here in the Seattle area, with companies including Facebook and Google. There are so many amazing things about the city, and it's understandable to see why so many people are moving here. But the not-so-pretty reality? Seattle is segregated due to the discrimination in housing. It's a part of our history with redlining, and it's occurring right now through gentrification and displacement. First things first, Seattle is the land of the Duwamish. European settlers arrived here in the 1850s. During this time, indigenous people were banned from living in the city. Fast forward to redlining. After the Great Depression, the federal government had an idea for banks to create loan maps, with red lines and districts on the maps that would show the quality of the neighborhoods, with red lines meaning hazardous. This was redlining. The criteria was based off of the age or condition of the homes, income, and race. So for any person of color, these were the only areas they were basically allowed to live in. Banks and brokers would discriminate brown and black people by not issuing them mortgages and forcing them to live within those red line zone areas. Along with redlining came restricted neighborhoods and racial restrictive covenants. It was written in deeds and wills that people of color, black, brown, or Jewish people were not able to buy that property or estate. African Americans were forced to live in the CD, the Central District area. Asian Americans, anyone of Japanese, Filipino, Chinese descent, were forced to live in Chinatown, which is now known as the CID, Chinatown International District. Home ownership is the main way that Americans build wealth, but POC and indigenous families were deprived of the ability to accumulate wealth through property ownership over the generations. This was active racial discrimination that caused a segregated city. Although the Fair Housing Ordinance did happen in 1968, the city still is segregated long after, with black and brown families still living in the CD and South Seattle neighborhoods. But the current situation? Seattle's a thriving city. It's attracting people and businesses from across the country and around the globe. However, not all communities are benefiting from our region's economic boom. It's causing gentrification and displacement for many residents of the city. Gentrification is the process of renovation of deteriorated urban neighborhoods by means of the influx of more affluent residents. Displacement is the moving of something from its place or position, in this case, a community. Due to the booming tech industry and job opportunities, Seattle's population is growing at a fast rate, and more people are looking to move into the CD in South Seattle. This type of gentrification is detrimental to Seattle communities. The predominantly black and brown communities such as the CD, the Rainier Valley, Columbia City, Othello, and Rainier Beach are being taken over by white people, millennials, and transplants. These three groups are probably drawn to these areas due to it being more quote-unquote progressive or cultured, but more likely because it's cheaper than North Seattle. And there's a light rail station in these neighborhoods, which makes it even more convenient. This is another reason why even white households are moving from North Seattle to South Seattle to take advantage of lower rents and relatively cheaper home buying opportunities. Now, with all these changes, the property values and rents rise, which means original residents, the poor and people of color, are being pushed out of those neighborhoods. Where there were once homes owned by black and brown communities, there are now more luxury apartment buildings, trendy restaurants, yoga studios, and coffee shops opening up. Two areas that reflect that and are being heavily affected are Othello and Rainier Beach, both neighborhoods of the South Seattle area. They are Seattle's most racially and economically diverse neighborhoods. They've been a destination predominantly for communities of color and immigrant and refugee communities. Other areas being affected are the historically black neighborhood, the CD. It's become majority white. The Seattle Times found that in the 1970s, the CD was about 73% black, a figure that's dropped to less than 20%, and this was just as of 2015. In Columbia City, there's been a decrease of 23.5% in people of color, and that's just within the past decade. To take a look at the bigger picture, the real estate pressures of the last 2 decades, during which time the median price of a home in Seattle rose from $150,000 in 1997 to $720,000, and this was just as of April 2017. It's rippled through the city, driving communities from north to south, and have been exacerbated by the 2009 opening of the Link Light Rail. Another fact about all of this is that North Seattle still remains 75 to 80% white. So if you're wondering, Seattle is still segregated, and it is still being affected by its history of redlining, and it is currently being gentrified.